Some massive weapon balancing is planned for this week. The Korean devs have just posted their update notes and we can see everything, along with a dev comment on their plans for each of the different weapons and how they should be balanced. They are finally introducing the ability to upgrade the tier 2 Archboss weapons with new Ascended, Giant Cordy and Della's Noah. Save onto your guild coins because they'll be adding new items you can purchase there, like unlock stones and noble polished crystals. There is an absolute ton to go through in this video, with a bit of a showcase of the new outfit and weapons coming this Halloween and the event details. So we'll begin with the weapon balancing and have a look what this will mean. So to start, Greatsword. They say that it's primarily used by tanks, so they're adjusting new mechanics and increasing monster damage. We can see the changes just here, giving you the skill damage boost when shock is applied to the target. I'm guessing that's going to be a change to Raging Frenzy. And then with Death Blow, they'll be adding the ability for it to reduce the cooldown of Guillotine Blade when hitting a target with shock. And monster damage boosts going from 120% to 140%, same for that Guillotine Blade. As for the dagger, they mentioned in the past it showed high DPS in combination with Crossbow in PvE, but recently its performance has been falling short of expectations. And so they're adjusting the overall DPS performance, increasing monster damage. And in PvP, daggers and crossbow is supposed to act as counter to shields. And so they're adjusting that a little bit. And we can see here, Inject Venom is going to have monster damage increase from 60% to 100%. Brutal Incision going from 15% to 50%. Thunderclad Bombings is going from 40% to 50% when you use this spec. Your Vampiric Strike will now have a shield life reduction, giving an additional damage hit when the target's affected by shield of 320%. And Frenzied Sword Dance now gets multiplied by 50% for its damage against monsters. I just wish they would change it so that you could have this spec here and you would not teleport at all around the target, because that just gets you killed in certain boss fights. But then having a look at the Sword and Shield, they say it's a strong matchup against Crossbow in PvP, but it's not currently performing as expected. So Counter Barrier, they're reducing the specialization cost from 7 to 5, and they added a feature that reduces the additional damage taken by 5 for 6 seconds, maximum 20 stacks. I assume this is then just more damage reduction, which also just means you're countering that crossbow's bonus damage, and they'll probably die even quicker while you have this active when you reflect that damage back. As for crossbow, they say it boasts explosive firepower in PvP, but in many situations opponents had little opportunity to grab them, meaning CC. So they're adjusting that along with keeping it to have the ability to basically counter shields. So Nimble Leap, its immunity effect is modified to have a reactivation time of 3 seconds, meaning you will not be able to gain this immunity to CC back to back so quickly. And I believe Weak Point Shot now gained an additional damage boost against targets with shields. As for what they say about Longbow, they agree that it's mainly a support weapon rather than used for firepower, and so they'll be increasing the monster damage basically. We can have a look here. Sniping, monster damage boost from 85 to 110%. I believe it's Brutal Arrow. It will gain that damage boost when the target's under suppression, and they made it so when suppression is applied, you will gain 20% critical damage for 4 seconds. This is when you have the passive active Steady Aim. There was a fix here where it was bugging out at certain heights, and another fix here. But then the Orb, they say it's excessively high DPS when combined with certain weapons, so they'll be making some numerical adjustments, but it will remain a top tier firepower weapon, and they want to be changing up the monotonous cycle of just using Starlight Rush, meaning Stellar Dash. So they're actually giving a buff to some other skills to encourage you to use different abilities. So let's have a look what that means. So Starlight Rush simply got a flat damage nerf. So at max level, it's from 680% down to 580%. So that's like a 15% damage nerf. Not really a whole lot. But the additional hit also gets a nerf, and this is where a lot of the damage was coming from when you combined it with Satellite Copy. So for every single orb you had out, you're getting that additional hit, which was 272% of base damage plus that extra bonus, which is now down to 191%, which is about 30% nerf on that ability. So that straight up nerfs, yes, Orb and Crossbow, as that's generally what they were crutching on. The spam of just Stellar Dash. A 15% nerf to its main damage and a 30% nerf to its additional effect. And that Orb effect is the main damage you were getting. Void Slash actually got a boost, so now it's more encouraged to use it. A monster damage buff from 40% to 60%. The Explosion, similarly, 40% to 60% monster damage. Supernova Collapse, the effect that reduces movement speed to 0, is changed so that it just reduces movement speed by 80%. So you'll still have the chance to move out. Basically makes it not so suppressive in PvP. And the weapon masteries, they nerfed the additional projectiles that you get from your basic attacks from Stellar Echo down to just 9 instead of 12. They also nerfed this weapon mastery. It's down from 35% to just 25%. This damage boost right here. And the heavy attack damage boost, instead of being 26%, will just be 20%. This affects everybody because this is a buff that can be applied to everybody when using Satellite Copy. So that's pretty much it. Yes, the synergy for Orb Crossbow is not going away. They haven't changed that, which is actually a good thing, meaning the playstyle shouldn't change up too much. You are more so encouraged to actually use other abilities as they will deal a bit more damage, but in all likelihood you will still spam Stellar Dash. But it'll probably be like 20 to 25% less damage overall than you had before. So this is definitely a more valid nerf than what they did in the previous patch a few weeks ago. It is interesting that they are buffing up Dagger. These are some pretty big damage boosts. Combining that with Greatsword, Ravagers are gonna have a great time now in PvE. I don't think Crossbow and Dagger, Scorpion, will see much of a boost other than 10% here through Thundercloud's bombings and a little bit from Frenzied Sword Dance. But Crossbow didn't really get nerfed other than its CC immunity. I was worried that they were going to basically destroy the synergy of Selfless Diffusion with the Orb's Stellar Dash and its Rift Fracture. They didn't, so playstyle can still be the same, and similarly I can still play Fury just as well. Didn't get buffed here, so they didn't actually change anything with the wand. They didn't even mention it, but they did give a slight boost to the Spear, aka Window for some reason. A monster damage boost 40% to 60%, as well as here 80% to 100%. I believe that's Vicious Fury and Brutal Fury, along with Cyclonic Fury, but most people just use Phoenix Barrage anyway. But now let's have a look at some equipment changes. They are fixing the Mordecai Greatsword. This thing was rather busted to be able to just one-shot groups of enemies. And you can see that via the price and the availability versus these other weapons. So it should properly be affected by defense now. You won't be able to use the Tevant daggers in PvE anymore. And the Azrael sword and shield, the damage reduction has been significantly boosted to 250. This one, I highly recommend it if you don't want to get melted by crossbow users. Similarly, the Cornelius sword and shield has been changed a bit here. It will now reduce the target's bonus damage, meaning again more of a counter to crossbow users. There were some small fixes here, and then some tier 3 armor changes. The Blood Hunter headpiece should no longer have double mana cost efficiency and just have health regen instead. And the heavy attack damage set should now give up to a total of 40%. 10% plus 10% times 3. This means a pretty big buff of, yes, 15% more heavy attack damage, making it a lot more competitive versus the Blood Knight set. Just the only issue, Blood Knight set, or Blood Hunter set, is leather, which is a lot more favorable for DPS and the material synergies. So even with that buff, I'm not sure how competitive this will be. And then we move on to some battleground changes. So they basically made it so you can't spawn camp, there's some base protection, and you will receive a ton of damage if you enter the enemy's base, and they're adding ranked matches. Only parties of 6 can apply for ranked matches, and the game starts with the same number of roles on both teams. That does mean it's not a solo queue. And they are adding the new versions of Giant Cordy and Delos Noah with the ability to upgrade those Archboss weapons to tier 3. What this does is it adds another stat to them. So for example, the Sword and Shield, I believe, gets Fortitude. We can look at the exact changes later, but you will be able to upgrade them using multiple different materials. You will need the tier 2 version of the Archboss weapon to be able to upgrade it using 90 of the new reagents, just like we have going from tier 1 Archboss to tier 2 Archboss. They seem to be removing the ability to craft the lower level adventure coins. This is definitely something to check out tomorrow on the Korean server to confirm, meaning you may not be able to actually craft unlock stones with fortitude coins. Then they added a crafting recipe where you can basically turn a skill core into the original equipment. So if you regretted your decision of turning it into a skill core, you can now revert that change. It will cost you though like 20 soul fragments here at tier 1, 10 of the new ones at tier 2, and then you can do the same for the Delos Noah and Cordy weapons using their reagents. And they are boosting the hit points of Queen Belandir and Tevent, so they don't just die in 5 seconds. There were some small housing updates here, and in terms of your guild, they are adding new guild contracts and updating the store. You'll be able to get unlock stones, 15 every week. You'll be able to get, I think that's Chaos Prisms, but it maybe could be Entropy Shards. You can get 3 per week, very expensive though. And you can get Noble Polished Crystals, 14 per week. In the solo dungeon, they reduced the amount of dwarf waves you have to beat from 8 to 4. That's great, because that just took so long. But yeah, that's about it for these changes. I want to have a quick look at the new skins coming. You may already have seen, they posted this YouTube short. I'll just let it play. This Thursday as well. That's the outfit here, and I believe on the female character, not much different, just a bit thinner. And you can remove the decorations, just like this for the female character too, and then it comes with the weapon skins. So the sword and shield, the crossbows, the bow, the staff, your book and wand, your spear, the orb, and that's it. We'll then have a look at what they say about the new event. They have a video here as well. Up until November the 11th. It will probably start for us on Thursday, last 2 days longer. You'll be able to get a buff here for Solent, Weapon Mastery, damage, just like last year. You can get your candy corn via the check-in event, 3-week event, and you can enter the co-op dungeon, the pumpkin patch or whatever they call it for us on global, but it's the same as last year. You can get dimensional pumpkins and a tombstone. And those pumpkins you'll exchange for rewards. But in the chest you can also get all these rewards, including ornate coins, some fashion and emotes. You'll be able to exchange those pumpkins for certain rewards, like those fashion items if you don't get them to drop in the dungeon. But yes, entropy shards, chaos prisms, unlock stones, conversion stones, extract stones, runes, and growth stones. So you'll be able to get some useful items there. What looks unfortunate is in the chest, they don't seem to be adding the growth stones like they had last year. It was a pretty big boost they had. This time around, it's mainly just cosmetics and otherwise solent and ornate coins. I guess the solent will be useful though. And you'll be able to craft some event food, giving 100% solent and mastery along with abyss consumption efficiency. So this will be the go-to food. Probably won't stack with other foods that you would use for your abyss token farms. And you can get the fish buff food here as well. And that's about it for the event, other than saving some oranges from these vines and getting some cosmetics. The other blogs here is one for furniture, for housing. They just display all the details here. I can probably show you later in game when the update drops. And then they have a new battle pass. We should be getting our battle pass as well. We just don't have a teaser on it, but it could be the exact same. This being the Halloween skin, and then those rewards. They don't showcase anything, just list everything. But yeah, it's the usual unlock stones, raid material, heroic materials, growth stones, etc. But yeah, that's it for the update. Again, Orb getting some pretty significant nerfs, but other weapons like Greatsword and Dagger getting some pretty big boosts. Even Spear too. So we'll have to test out these changes once they go live and see where the rankings of classes are at. But yeah, Orb Crossbow will still remain very competitive, I assume, but just other classes will be catching up a bit. They haven't nerfed in any way the playstyle that you need to do, so in terms of gear, I doubt that's changing if you made an Orb Crossbow build. So overall, thanks for watching. A special thank you to all these channel members, and we'll see you guys around.